Mars, beginning January 2nd on the Science Channel.
Traditionally, we've entered our cities through walls, gates, and bridges. Today, we see the world through radio and television, billboards and video screens. Society is evolving, and so are its building materials. Some designers are pushing fabric for the actual structure itself.
We'll always have wood, we'll always have steel, we'll always have glass. We have to think of it as another material. It expands our vocabulary as architects, and I think that's really what's interesting.
Yeah, it's obvious, exactly.
Where?
So it's that.
Nicholas Goldsmith and Todd Dalland have been designing fabric structures for over 20 years.
So,
Their New York City firm, FTL Happold, FTL for Future Tense Limited, attracts clients from all over the world. They have over 800 projects to their credit.
Some of the work we do is temporary urban planning, where we'll design a temporary city or a moving city. For example, in 1996 in Atlanta for the Olympics, we made 3 million square feet of temporary buildings. We had temporary roofs, temporary walls, temporary interiors, temporary lighting, temporary power generation, temporary toilets.
Some of their projects are still on the drawing board, like this 10,000 square foot traveling museum. The supports that hold up the roof actually sit on the trucks that transport the structure. This is one of their finished designs, a portable opera hall.
The Carlos Mosley Pavilion that we designed for Central Park and 19 other parks around New York is a traveling theater that travels on trucks. When the trucks arrive on site, they open up like mechanical flowers and become stage sets and amplification for the Metropolitan Opera, the New York Philharmonic, and audiences of 100,000 people. The theater is created in 4 hours with no anchorages into the ground.
Nicholas Goldsmith designed a solar pavilion, the first fabric structure that generates its own power.
This is a model of it, of the built structure. And what we did, you can see it's a model that has these black strips on it, which are actually laminated PV strips. All of the elements are wired in series down to the 2 poles here and come up. They light lights in the main mast, and they give off about 1,000 watts, which isn't a tremendous amount of power. But what's interesting is that it's a fairly inexpensive system. These are amorphous silicone strips. As the sun hits this thing, the PV screen, basically it generates electricity. Although this was originally used as an exhibition, I think one of the interesting things about this is that it has tremendous applications, especially in developing countries. Just like in cell phone technology, the way we've seen cell phones sort of leapfrog over conventional line phone technology in developing countries where they didn't have the infrastructure, didn't have the wires to set that up. They're able to go directly to cell phones and people are able to use it. This type of facility could be set up in a lot of places that don't have energy.
Goldsmith has even more plans for his energy-producing fabric roofs.
This is for parking structures. It's where people could come, park their cars underneath the shade. They would be able to recharge their electric cars. The photovoltaics would have chargers along a 60-foot grid, and they'd have chargers that would allow you to come in, leave your car, charge it while you were doing whatever shopping or whatever you wanted to do, and then drive out again. So I think that potential has, is really something that could be developed, especially as we see these new technologies of electric cars in the States.
Skyscrapers fascinate partner Todd Dalland. In the early 90s, he came up with the design for a fabric skyscraper.
You know, sometimes I look at a building going up. The structure is so beautiful before the glass and granite cladding goes on. So imagine cladding in fabric. This one has large surfaces of fabric that spiral down the building in one direction with windows that spiral up in the other direction. It's a bit fanciful, but you know, only about 40% of the cladding on a building needs to be vision glass.
In the Middle Eastern city of Dubai, a 60-story hotel has fabric all the way up one side. What seemed like a crazy idea a few years ago has become reality.
The idea I have now is to do a recyclable, portable fabric skyscraper.
The key elements in his design are scaffolding and temporary building materials from the construction industry.
We've got the basic scaffolding units that are very familiar, that stack together very quickly and create the walls and structure of the building. We have modular panels, floor panels, that clip on, that are prefabricated. We have portable elevators, temporary construction industry elevators that clip onto the scaffolding. We have modular toilet units that we can place into a scaffolding tower. We can build a skyscraper in 6 weeks. So it's viable for a 6-month use or a 2-year use or a 3-year use. We could also use a temporary skyscraper to temporarily occupy a precious urban site where a permanent building would never be allowed. Central Park, for example. We could build a 12-story temporary museum. I mean, it may seem odd for a design firm to create a building in search of a client, but you know, we're taking emerging technology and finding ways to bring it into building, into construction, into society, and humanize it in the process. So our first contribution is to simply say that this is possible in a way that's never been done before or never been imagined before.
Public buildings are the first places we see new ideas in construction. But sooner or later, these ideas find their way into our homes.
Actually, one is just being finished in Phoenix, Arizona, that has a wonderful fabric roof.
In the desert, shade is a precious commodity. This 2,500 square foot polyvinyl roof deflects much of the desert heat. This is the first house in the U.S. to use fabric in a major way.
In terms of construction, there isn't any reason that anything that uses conventional roofing today could not be made with fabric. It's a matter of economics.
Most people see tensile fabric structures as whimsical design. But in the future, fabric could become as familiar as steel and glass. Until then, the city of Denver stands at the forefront of this new technology. Fabric, the building material of tomorrow.
When we fly home, we always look for the mountains. And now I always look for the tops of the DIA roof. It's kind of fun. And especially when I come up out of the train and you come out underneath the fabric, it's such a wonderful feeling because it's so like you're outside. And there's so much light and so much feeling of openness, which is part of the Denver landscape.
You're in the Science Channel's Work Zone. From mammoth machines to microtechnology, stay with us for more inventions at work. More of Work Zone is next, only on the Science Channel. A new name, a new look, but we're still your best source for science programming on TV today. Stay with the Science Channel.